Hello, everybody. My name is Tim Stork. I work for PMP Optica as a solutions engineer. I did a session yesterday on AI and machine learning for food safety, and this is it's not an essential prerequisite, but today I'll be talking a little bit more about how to create an AI implementation plan within a food facility and some tips and tricks. So some of the content I'm going to cover today. Why is it important to have an implementation plan for AI? What sort of things should go into that plan? What sort of things should you measure to know you're on the right track and that you're going to reach success? And talk too about the people and the culture side of any new project and change management. So to get started, why do I even need a plan, right? So chances are most facilities today already have AI as some part of their process, some part of their equipment. So if you think you don't, then you're probably already behind, right? So if you don't get ahead of it, there are some risks, and if you do plan for success, you can get the most out of it, and you can make sure you avoid some really important risks. And if you're not planning for AI, chances are your competitors are. So better to start now. Some of the things AI can do for your business. Obviously, you want to use AI tools because they're providing value. It's not just technology for the sake of technology. And I talked about it yesterday, many ways that AI is being used today in the food industry. But some of those categories are to optimize and make more efficient things in the plant. Obviously, robotics is a huge one. Data analysis and software is a huge one, where there's all this data and so many potential trends out there, too many that can ever be tracked with humans and with spreadsheets, right? So AI is able to find those interesting trends and interesting patterns. Next is around quality control. I said I'm from PMP Optica, so what we do is using AI and machine learning and hyperspectral imaging to find foreign materials and to find defects in meat. That's our application, but all sorts of imaging is in use. I talked about robotics. Well, the imaging is the eyes, and the robotics are the action of those solutions. And monitoring and sensors, temperature, pH of products, what's going through the line at any time. Those are always really good. So many sensors exist, and tracking that data and automating some of the risk flagging can add a lot of value to these processes. Increased efficiency, increasing yields, decreasing costs, things like that. Comes along with, it's loud, comes along with these data sets and automation and efficiency. And also on the safety side. So of course, safety is usually number one in most plants, or at least that's what we say. But I think it really is true. So AI can do great things with looking at the incidents you have and looking at what sort of safety policies you have, and helping to make decisions to improve those things. So one example, I remember visiting a highly automated pork processor doing disassembly, and all of those roles at one point were being done by humans with all the cuts and whatnot. But I remember going in and maybe about half the cuts were now being done by robots. So that's the efficiency. Those robots can do what, let's say, they can always do what in the past only the best people could do, and they can always do better than the average. But on top of that, you're eliminating some of the most dangerous jobs in terms of repetitive strain. So you can get multiple value by implementing one sort of technology AI project by automating this role and putting in robotics as an example. So there's the benefit, but there's also risks that come, potential risks with any new technology. One of the big ones people are afraid of before jumping into using a new technology is about wasted investment. And if you don't plan ahead of time and and make sure you have a plan, yeah, absolutely, it's a risk that everyone puts in a lot of effort, and you have the best intentions, but you get to the end and it was not a successful project, right? Doesn't look great for the team who ran it, even if they tried their hardest, and really for the people who made the decisions to fund the project, it really doesn't feel good. Similarly, on the operational side, if you don't think through the technical plan of how you're going to put it in, if you're taking risks with downtime, that's going to be pretty scary when the fingers point at you when the line goes down and you're not producing anymore. Cybersecurity, AI is always going to be built on data. Certain amounts of data are you have to be more careful with than others, but worth thinking through in your plan. How are you going to make sure the data stays safe and the right data? Certain data maybe doesn't matter as much. Work-face challenges, that's about the people. So I'll talk quite a bit about culture and people in later slides, but it really is important to communicate with all the different stakeholders and even people who are indirect stakeholders. They may not be required to make the project a success, but often people can slow down or add friction to the process in a lot of ways. So you have everyone from the line workers, supervisors, sanitation can really make a mess of things when there's equipment involved. And then on the other side, there's the decision makers and the real stakeholders. And keeping everybody informed, setting expectations is really critical. And ethical considerations, sometimes this comes up in automating things like hiring, data bias. You have to be careful, but in the stuff we deal with, maybe that's not, there's less ethical concerns. So you decided you need a plan. Where do you go from here? There's different areas you should think about when considering, when building the plan. The first thing you need to decide is what are your goals, what are your objectives. There's no point in having a project unless everybody agrees, here's the value we're going to get, here are the people who are going to care, and agreeing on that. And you'd be surprised how often everyone says, yeah, we need to do that project, but they have different ideas about the benefits they're going to get. And if you jump into a project, you may get to the end and some people think it's a failure and some people think it's a success because there wasn't agreement at the beginning. So once you've got those goals and you determine the scope, then people's minds go to the technology side. And I'm one of those people too. I'm an engineer by training. So how, and of course, you need to think about the technical. There's no doubt there. How is this going to implement with your current process? What sort of technology are you using? Where is the data going? What are the inputs, the outputs? Are you training machine learning models? What sort of data? How are you testing them? Those are things you need to think about. But just as equally important as the technology side is the people side, like I was saying. Who needs to be involved? Who are the stakeholders? What departments are going to play a part in it and need to be informed and need to be engaged, making sure that you involve all the right players or inform them at the very least. Then once you think about the technology and the people, now with my engineering hat on, I would say something like an FMEA analysis for risks, but it can be a lot less rigid than that. But taking the team and taking all those diverse perspectives and saying, what do you think could go wrong with this project? And maybe it's on the operations side, or maybe it's on the IT side, or maybe it's on the people side. But thinking through those things ahead of time, how can you mitigate those things? And maybe you do that at the beginning of the project, but you also do it in the middle of the project where you've learned some things. There's new risks that have become apparent, and you want to brainstorm more risk mitigation techniques as you go. All of this is going to set everyone's expectations, be eyes open to what are we trying to avoid in this project, and hopefully give better chances of success. And speaking of success, measuring success is really important. So if you followed this step, right, we've all agreed on what the objectives are, but again, you can get to the end of a project and not know whether it's really failed or succeeded if you're not measuring the right things, and being able to track if the project's headed in the right direction. You don't have the data to message to those decision makers to say, yes, it was a success or it's not a success. So choosing the right KPIs, the performance indicators, when do you want this project to be successful and to start providing value? Those are all really important things to keep in mind. An interesting way to look at these projects, I think there's a couple scenarios here. Sometimes you're just buying a third-party technology and you're implementing it, and that is the solution that will be implemented in your plant. But other times you want to do something new and it's very specific to your process and you want to build it yourself. In either of those cases, it pays to start a little bit smaller and not try to, without the learnings you'll gain, not try to implement the full solution. And this lean feedback loop on the right there is a good way to think about it. So you've got an idea, you think it can provide value. Take that idea and make a plan, of course. Think it through, but build it and build small to start. Build that first implementation. Measure, is it succeeding? Is it giving what we want? Get that information and learn from it. And this is a cycle of iteration, right? So with each iteration, you can grow. You've taken care of some of the biggest risks, hopefully, as you go. But also, as you get information from each cycle that you're measuring, take that information and use it to communicate to the other stakeholders to say, this is what was good. We have met these metrics. There were challenges here, and this is how we're going to address them in the next cycle. So that goes a long way to getting rid of misinformation too, right? Where people say, well, I hear it was going great. And the other people say, well, I hear it was an utter failure. And you don't want there to be those perspectives. Communication is really, really important. A little bit more about measuring outcomes. So I'm going to talk about some examples from my experience at PPO about how some customers have set their goals. If you look at the different sorts of KPIs, we're all in business here, right? So I think the decision makers at some point are going to want to be measuring the business impact. Why did you do the project in the beginning? Were you trying to save costs? Were you trying to improve yield? There's going to need to be some data to back up whether you met those goals. But you can also choose metrics to do with specifically to the AI model. So PPO likes to track things like its individual performance to detect certain materials, or it's the false rejection rate, the accuracy, the uptime of our systems. And then there's operational side as well. So there's the business side, right? Are you saving money? But underneath that, is your process actually getting more efficient? Are the numbers, are you actually putting more product through? Are you making more product? Are you doing it in less time? That kind of thing. And then you can do more qualitative stuff by talking to your customers and saying, has your experience changed? Or, complaints too, you can assign numbers to those, and chargebacks and assign dollars. That can be part of the business measurement. So, just a second, I think that might be the next one. Anyways, a few customer examples for us. We have some that are saving money by, if you've got foreign materials in your process, if those get to your final product, you've put a whole lot of effort into making that product just to throw it out at the end where you find something. So some of our customers would install foreign material detection at the beginning, start clean, stay clean, eliminate foreign materials, and then they throw away less product. We've had customers that have saved millions of dollars a year with a single system by start clean, stay clean. On the other hand, saving their customer relationships, reducing complaints, you can build a pretty good business case and ROI based on a half reduction in the number of complaints and chargebacks you're getting. And then a lot of the time in general, these AI projects are around automation. So eliminating the dull, dirty, dangerous jobs. And there's always dollars tied to that. So freeing up that labor to do other jobs that maybe are harder to automate, making jobs safer, that sort of thing. So those can all be different. Those are examples from my business about how you measure the business impact. So when you're looking at the results, always the goals need to be tied back to the objectives, of course. You've chosen not many metrics. I would say 2 or 3 metrics hopefully can capture if your project is traveling in the right direction. It's better to set measurement goals that you can keep up with over time, because measuring things is always going to take resources. That's better than being overambitious and you fall behind in the measurement and now you've got holes in your data and your trends, and or you just have nothing to share, right? Because people can't keep up with it. So it's good to be realistic about the things that you can track. And do it regularly, set that cadence. I've talked a few times about people and communication. So at the beginning, you need to communicate. In the middle, communicate. At the end, communicate. Every cycle, communicate. Different stakeholders, they need to know what's happening. And again, people always think my boss needs to know what's happening, but those people who have been really engaged on the line and they've been maybe going out of their way a little bit to make sure that if it's a piece of equipment, it's being looked after and it's being used properly, they want to know how the project's going too, because they're invested now as well. It's also a great way to, it can help with the career trajectory of people across the organization, because they do get to work with new technology. That engagement helps with their growth and their happiness in the role. And us as an AI equipment provider, we go out of our way to schedule these quarterly business reviews where we're measuring on our own what the business impacts are for our customers and reminding them of the value it's providing to help our champions on the customer side tell their story. And we've had people who have won internal Best Project of the Year awards for the projects with our systems, or have had career growth and that sort of thing. So communication makes that happen. If no one knows it's happening, then it's not great. So on the culture side, this is the last part of the people picture. PPO can sort of tell as we go into a plant whether this is going to be a really easy implementation with a great culture that's open to taking controlled risks and everybody accepting that responsibility together, or whether it's going to be a little bit more challenging. And we've certainly had successful projects from both of those cases. But that collaboration, that plant culture, does leadership communicate nicely with the rest of the organization? How is technology seen across all levels? Are people very leery of new technology because they think it's there to take their jobs? Or do they understand that technology is there to make the organization better in general, and really it'll help everybody? So sharing information, providing updates, what are we measuring and why, and how is it helping you no matter where you are in the organization? That's really important. Here's a few resources. These aren't very specific, but some of the places where I send people for more information about AI, and ChatGPT was used to help make the content of this presentation. So if you're ever looking to get a broad overview, nothing too specific, head to ChatGPT or one of those other tools, and you'd be surprised about how quickly you can learn a lot. All right, we are at booth BC 45087. If anyone wants to see, we've got 2 of our hyperspectral imaging systems there. Can show you some foreign material demos, and if you're interested, come on down. Thank you for your time.